Well, greetings everyone. Welcome to today's Vision 6 Power Session, 8 ways to increase email opens and engagement. My name's Andy, the product trainer here at Vision 6, and I'll be taking you through today's session. So when it comes to today's topic, increasing opens and engagements on your emails, what actually is an open and what is an engagement? And we're going to actually drill into some of these topics here a little bit more throughout the session as well. So what drives an email open? Well, as the name suggests, that's when a person clicks on an email message in their inbox to actually have a look at its content. And generally, the key things that would drive an email open would be the sender name, the subject, the pre-header text that's available in the email client as well, and the expectancy. And as I said, we'll drill through these in a few moments so that we can sort of have a look at what each one of those means. In terms of engagement, that generally refers to the user doing something as a result of getting that email message. So once they've then opened it, they'll have a look at the message itself. And the things that can drive engagement would be the content of the email message, any CTAs or call to actions, the personalization that makes up that email message. Is this fairly generic, or is it something just for me, or at least does it feel like it's something just for me? And the relevancy and timing of the email as well. So if we drill into each of these key areas, so let's start with opens. So the sender name, as you can see from this small little preview here, that's generally the name that appears where the email is coming from. So if it's a company name, for example, XYZ Donuts or something like that would be the sender name you might put in there. So from an open point of view, one of the key drivers, of course, there, as you'll see with the others, is the sender name. So as a recipient of this message, as a contact on the list, do I know this person or company? So is it something I can trust? Is it an email that I signed up for? Okay, yes, I recognize this company. I went and visited their store yesterday and bought myself a donut or something like that at the store. And now I'm getting an email from XYZ Donuts because I signed up in store to join their club or receive a discount, something like that. Another key driver is the subject. So the subject, of course, as you know, will generally tell you what the email is about. So again, when I receive an email with a subject from a sender that I trust, that's then that next decision I'll quickly make in my head to say, okay, well, is this something I want to read, or will I just swipe across on the email and Gmail, for example, on my phone to archive it or to place it straight into the bin? So if it's something like a feedback survey and maybe I know that, well, I won't have time to fill this in, or maybe I'll look at it later, I might sort of swipe across on the message to put it straight in the archive and deal with it later on, just to get it out of the inbox, I guess. So the subject, again, is a good key thing that we can tweak in order to get an email opened a little bit more than it might generally be otherwise. Pre-header text, that one is, it's not a new thing. It's been around for quite a while, but email clients generally now, email clients will let you customize what the pre-header text is, whereas previously, back in the old days, it would just pick the first few lines of the email and show that as the pre-header text. So you can actually see that there, and this might sort of be familiar to you if you received an email and seen this sort of second area here, and you can customize what text appears in there in that actual pre-header text, as opposed to just letting the email client read the first few lines of the email and get the pre-header text itself or make it up itself from there. So you can actually determine what the pre-header text is. And I'll show you what some of these are in Vision 6 as well and how to do so. And this again can provide a bit of additional context as to what the email might be about. So if it's not immediately clear from the subject, if you're using a little bit of a clickbaity style subject, shall we say, to get the person to open it, again, they might use the pre-header text as their next determining factor in their head as they go, well, do I want to read this message? What is it actually about? Which I can determine from that. And of course, the other key driver from an open point of view is expectancy. Am I actually expecting this email from you? Is it just sort of something out of the blue? Or, yes, I know I went to your store yesterday and signed up for the VIP club or something like that. Then yes, I can probably expect an email from you, an hour later or the next day when the scripts run to welcome me to the club or to fill in a profile that I need to fill in to join the club or whatever the case might be. So that again plays, or these sort of are the key general factors that will determine the decisions or the processes that a person goes through when they decide whether or not they should open an email. And all of these things, it comes down to, with expectancy, it's down to the timing of an event, and the other three things you've got control over as well in terms of changing what they are, tweaking them, testing them to see what works best in your scenario for your business. Now if we move to the next section, engagement. So let's say we've done really well with our opens. The person has clicked on the email, they've opened it, they've decided that the subject is good and they trust us, they're expecting this email and so on. From an engagement point of view, what areas can we look at and what drivers can we tweak to increase this? And generally what we mean with engagement is it's some sort of action as a result of the email. So did they buy something from our store or online store because they saw a discount in an email? Did they click on a link? Did they fill in a survey? Did they read a blog, visit a website? Whatever our desired action is, if they perform that, we would then call that an engagement of some kind. And generally that's tracked by looking at clicks. So in the Vision 6 reporting, you've got that the click reports there as well, and the heat map report as well. You can monitor clicks on certain things to determine whether or not a person took an engagement, took an action. So what drivers have we got here? Well, content, of course, is the key one. So is this email useful and is it worth my time? Is the content within the email something I'm expecting? Is it a sale based on items I'm interested in? Or is it something very generic that it's just sort of a general email that, okay, great, I didn't really need to know that your stores will be closed on next week for a refurbishment, but thanks, you've told me anyway. So sort of these kind of things. And again, it comes down to that personalization aspect. If I frequent the Brisbane City store and I'm receiving an email from you to say that the Sydney store is undergoing refurbishment, well, that's a personalization fail in my books, because you've just sort of sent me an email that I didn't really need to know about because I'd never visit the Sydney store. I'm in Brisbane, but you've told me about some refurbishments and that they're going to be closed. So again, all that plays an important factor as well in terms of engagement and relevancy, because was the email personalized? Should I have received that email? So that's the content side of thing there. A call to action. So is there a clear goal of the email that I've sent the user or as a recipient of that email? What should I get out of it? Should I learn something? Should I read something and be educated? Should I fill in a form, purchase something online, etc.? So with that call to action, it's generally buttons work really well as call to action. So having a colourful button that sort of stands out within your design as part of your colour scheme as a call to action. And of course, a sense of urgency as well can improve engagements and also get the user to perhaps make an action quicker than they may normally. So if you've got sort of 50% off XYZ product, but it's only until 2 o'clock this afternoon, then that creates that sense of urgency, that fear of missing out almost, as they say, to go through and make that purchase straight away or take the action quicker, as opposed to just archiving the email, getting to it later, and then I've missed out. Coupon codes are a common one that I see for that type of thing. So if I've left something in my shopping cart, they know who I am. Generally within a couple of hours, I'll get an email with a coupon code to say, hey, you left something in your cart. Here's 10% off to sweeten the deal, but you must check out by midnight tonight to get the discount. Those sort of call to actions there. And as I touched on before, personalization will always work better than generic content, because I feel then that the email is a lot more relevant to what I'm interested in. Again, that's that last point there, relevancy. It's what I'm interested in, it appeals to me. And we've got an example, which I'll show you in a few moments, in Vision 6, which talks to that personalization and relevancy piece. And the example that I use there is that you could say that I'm gluten-free as an example. And if the content I receive doesn't contain anything that I can eat, for example, that's not very personalized and relevant to me. I might archive that email, delete it, or worse, unsubscribe from your list because I feel there's no content of value there. It's not useful to me. So by doing that and by personalizing it, just using the data essentially that we've got on our contacts to make the email perform a lot better, we'll always get a much better engagement rate. So what are my 8 ways to increase email opens and engagement? There are more than 8, of course. There are many different things you can try. These are sort of the 8 ones that I sort of tend to focus on most and what will assist people with when I'm providing training here at Vision 6. The first one comes to that sort of open, that sort of first area that I spoke of here, what drives opens, which is checking your sender and from name. So to do that in Vision 6, I've just got Vision 6 open here in the messages section. And if we come across to the right-hand side against the email we want to check, and then go to message details, this is where we can come in and set the from name. So that's just the name that appears in the email client where your email is coming from. So just check that is correct. It's what your company name is or what you wish your from name to be. I've seen a few people put an email address in here accidentally, or maybe just put their own name when they're sending on behalf of a company. So just double check the from name here and just make sure that's sort of exactly what you wanted to say and appear that way in your recipients' inboxes. When it comes to pre-header text as well, that's the one I mentioned where it shows them a little preview of the email, or the first few words, first few sentences of the email you can have as pre-header text. I've actually got a sample of that here. If you hover over this little question mark, we've got this little pop-up. So you've got the from name, the subject line, and then you'll get generally about 80 characters or so as a pre-header text as well appears in the email client. It's sort of that small, faint grey text I know that appears in Outlook under a message. And you can customize what that is, as opposed to if you leave it blank, Outlook will get the first few lines of text and use that instead. So in Vision 6, exact same area as before, message details. So again, that's pressing the 3 dots next to the message in question, choosing message details. This pops up and you can type your pre-header text in here. So for example, the latest donut deals, donut on sale now. And you can actually put wildcards in this as well. It's a little known hidden feature of Vision 6. In a moment, I'll actually show you how to put wildcards in the subject line, such as the person's first name, which you have been able to do for ages, but you can actually put wildcards in the pre-header text as well. So I just have to simply copy that, paste it in there. And now my version of this email will say, the latest donut deals on sale now, Andy, would be my pre-header text. So some great options there to customize and use that in your email as well. And as I just said then, literally, good segue there, is personalizing your subject with wildcards. So again, it comes down to that personalization piece. Does it sound like this email's been made just for me? At the end of the day, most people know it's not. It's an email send out to a lot of people, but you'd be amazed at how much it plays on the open rate of an email. If a subject line is personalized, it will generally always increase your open rate. So again, here in the little same boxes we were in before actually, is where you would put your subject line as normal. Congratulations and thanks for joining the VIP club, or whatever it might be. And just down the end here, there's a little plus button where you can choose the field you would like to insert into your subject line as a wildcard or a mail merge field. So first name would be a good example there. Another one might be, let's go deals for, let's say deals on sale for you, first name. But why don't we pop the person's dietary at the front of this sentence? That might read quite nicely as well. And again, this would be a highly personalized subject line, because in my Vision 6 list, my dietary, or the different fields that I've got access to there, I've got vegan, gluten-free, vegetarian, that type of thing. So by inserting this here, if the person has something in that field, it would be displayed at the front of their subject line. So in my case, gluten-free deals on sale for you, Andy. And as someone who may be gluten-free, this is going to resonate with me really well. This is a hard-hitting email. The subject line is, I know if I received an email like this, I would want to have a look and see what that is. So again, it's all about that little personalization piece there, making sure that it's as personalized as possible. But of course, you've got a limitation to how many words you can put in a subject. So keep it concise, to the point, but also make sure it works really well from personalization side of things. And just again, once on that little subject, or still on the subject there, you can score your subject. So there's many tools which you can access through Google. Just type into Google subject line tester or something like that, or email subject line scoring. And there's many tools there which you can type or paste your subject line into, and it will give it a score out of 100. And it will analyze things such as the length of the subject, how many letters and words, whether you've used punctuation or excessive punctuation. So for example, 3 exclamation marks is, I would say, excessive. You wouldn't have that in a subject line generally. So that would score your email down, because as a result of that subject. So scoring tools, there's lots of free ones available online which you can test your email with. And they just sort of work on their own. They'll scan the email for particular words and rate it higher or lower depending on what words you use in there. So great little tool to help you work out some good subjects. And often you might decide to try your own subject line, and also you might think, well, hang on, why don't we try one of the ones that we got scored and it scored really well? Let's try that one as an alternative. How do we know which one's going to perform better? One of the functions in Vision 6 is that you can actually A/B test your subject. And that's done on the email itself when you go into the send screen. By the way, those areas I showed you, such as the from name and the subject line personalization with wildcards, you can also set those here on the send screen too. So you don't have to do that all on the message details window. But here, as you may have seen, we have the A/B test functionality, and you can actually type in 2 subject lines here and trial one against the other. Both can contain different wildcards as well. If you're not familiar, just quickly, what an A/B test does is you can set here your sample size, generally 20%, and 4 hours is what we recommend. They're the defaults. But essentially what will happen is Vision 6 will send this email here that you've designed to 10% of your contacts using subject line A. The other 10% of your contacts will get subject line B, whatever you put in here. And Vision 6 will then monitor that for you over the 4-hour period. And whichever one got a better open rate must be a better subject line because people opened it, or more people opened it. So Vision 6 will then automatically, once the test period ends, the 4 hours ends, it will send the winning version of that email subject line to the remaining 80% of your contact list that you specify here. So it's a great way to get your audience to do the testing for you, and the one that wins automatically goes out to everyone else. So great tool, built into Vision 6. Definitely 100% I would use it because it's a great little mechanism for you to trial different subjects and see which one performs better from an open rate. Personalizing the content there as well is another great way to increase the engagement of an email, because again, if it's all related to the user, if it's something they're expecting, if it's highly personalized to their state or where they live or what they're interested in, the foods they like, all these types of different things, it will always perform better than a generic piece of content. So if I go back to this little message here that I had open just before, there we go. You'll see I've got a couple of different areas that are being personalized. This little block here, the personalization is generally done through a function in Vision 6 called Conditional Content. We did have a separate power session on this, and I'll link you to that in the recording of today's video as I send that to you later on this afternoon. There'll be a link to that other power session. But essentially with Conditional Content is you can swap out blocks depending on certain things. So in this case, if my recipient has gluten-free in their dietary field that I've got in Vision 6 in my list, they will receive a different image and different text in the newsletter. Everyone else will receive this little block or an email that contains this block as opposed to this one here. I've got another one running a bit further down, which it will show the user their local stores based on what state they're in. And again, that's all done through Conditional Content. It says, if my recipient's state is Queensland, show the Brisbane store map. If it is New South Wales, show the Sydney store map. And for anyone else that doesn't meet my criteria, they can just see the map of Australia like that instead. So by using these conditional content blocks within an email, you can really personalize the content that the user receives. And of course, that's always going to perform better than a generic piece of content. Now, on the last two here, follow email design best practice is definitely one that worthwhile looking into, because if your email doesn't break the rules, so to speak, then it's going to look great in all email clients, it's going to perform well. And we actually have a whole article about email design best practice available as well. If you just jump into our support center, which you can access through the product as well on the question mark icon, or go straight to that link there, type in email design best practice, and it will come up with our how-to guide that walks you through different tips and tricks. It is a very long article, but it's sort of one of those things you only sort of read a couple of times to become familiar with the different areas. I've got that broken into different sections. It just walks you through how wide an email should be, how you should format your images and that type of thing. So worthwhile read. And finally there is to ensure your email is accessible. In doing so, you're not isolating a group of your contacts or your audience, and because remember, not everyone is able to visually see an email. There may be people with vision impairments and they won't be able to see your email. And if the email is not designed a certain way or is designed using certain things, the screen reader software which they may use to have an email read out to them out loud will not be able to work properly on their email. So again, our email design best practices article here does have some tips for designing for accessibility and supporting those with a vision impairment. It gives you some great tips and tricks there. And we did, again, have another power session on this late last year that walked through how to design an email to make sure it is accessible. It doesn't take very long to do either to adjust your email to make sure that is accessible. So we'll link that one through in the recording for you as well. But there's a couple of things you can do within your email design to assist that. The key one being putting alt text on your images. So this is a happy birthday banner, but to someone with a vision impairment, this would not be displayed to them on their screen reader software. So you would put in here, happy birthday banner in the alt text. So that's one of a couple of things you can do to make sure your email is more accessible, and their software would read that out to them so they know what that image is about. A couple of quick things in the bonus round. I realise I'm right on the edge of my 20-minute time box, so apologies. I won't show these in the software, but they are linked in the recording follow-up. You'll see articles to these. Domain records, so always ensure your domain is configured within Vision 6. That way you won't have any email deliverability issues, and your emails will generally always reach their audience then and not land up in the spam or junk folder. Keep your lists clean as well is another great way to improve engagement, because remember, if you're sending to a small percentage of your audience within your email list, maybe unsubscribers or sorry, people where the email may have bounced. So what you can do is actually remove them from your list. If their email address is wrong and it's bouncing, there's no real point keeping them in your email list. So you can remove those from Vision 6, remove bounced and deactivated contacts. And another great way to improve engagement is to only send to those people that actually want your email in the first place. So another option you can do, and it's a setting you can enable within Vision 6, is to double opt in your contact. So when a contact joins a form, so they fill in a form in store or on your website to subscribe to your newsletter, what you can configure Vision 6 to do is send them an email, and they need to confirm their subscription. So they need to click a link in that email that says, yes, I do really want to subscribe. You may have seen that a few times in the past when you sign up for things around and about the place. So double opting in is a great way to reduce your bounces, because what it will do is only those who, it sends an email to whatever address the person puts in on the form. So it actually validates that address to make sure it's a real working email address as well. So another feature you can turn on if you wish to in Vision 6.